Hello, everybody. I'm back. So, thank you for everybody who was watching the last show that we did on getting fit on a budget. I know there was quite a few that it was, I was kind of touched. We had quite a few viewers in the chat that were asking Bigfoot and UFO questions. So, hopefully, those 15 or 20 people are going to remember that I said an 8:30 special to start time tonight. Uh, we're fortunate enough that we were able to do that. We needed a few extra minutes because we got a lot of ground to cover. And this is almost like a series on TV where you get the first three, everything's great, and then there's some delay in the casting and some delay in the Actors Guild or whatever and go on strike. And then all of a sudden season 4 comes 4 years later. But uh, here we are. And hello to everybody. We see Big Henry's in the house. I'm responding to chat on my own account, so then that way people don't get confused. It's me, not Grizzly, talking. Roger Blair's here, so people are going to start trickling in. So, without further ado, let's get the man of the hour out here, and the man with all the information that we're going to cover tonight. See, we got him coming in. Chris Martinez, how you doing? So, welcome. And without further ado, we are going to get into the Bigfoot, UFOs, Nephilim. Oh my. And to do that, Mr. David Walker is here.
Hello now. Been a long time.
Yes, it has. Like I said, it was almost like the Actors Guild went on strike and we had to put season 4 off for a little bit, but we got it going.
We're back, and that's all we can say. We're back.
That's right. I think we're going to hear that pretty again, and I think what is this, Lethal Weapon 5 coming up? They're going to do another one. So
yes, that would be excellent.
Oh yeah, we're getting a lot of people coming in now. We got Chris coming in, Lily, hi Lily, Jahoni, hi Polite. I'm sure I butchered that, I apologize for it. I am not good with names. Big Henry, I don't know if you're drinking ale or what are we doing. So we're getting lots of people. We got 30 in here.
Great.
So
that is great.
out of the people, I think our Bigfoot. It was funny because we were doing a podcast just a little bit ago on trying to eat healthy on a budget. And we went from, I believe it was 32 viewers, and we were getting questions on Bigfoot and UFO. And I finally just said, hey, folks, you know what? That show starts at 8:30. And then we went down to like 4 viewers in 30 seconds. So we should have a good crowd tonight for this. And I am sure it is going to be worth the wait. So
I know I'm excited.
Yeah, me too, because we get to recap a little bit so we can catch everybody who missed it and anybody who did miss it. This is just a little recap. If you want to see the good stuff, go back and watch the first 3.
Oh, yes.
So this will make a whole lot more sense.
So I think the last time I was on, Brian, I don't think you had a copy of my book. I have a copy here that I can kind of show people, so that if they get interested in what we're talking about and they want more info, they can always go to the book right here. I don't know if they can see that real good or not, but it's called Supernatural Cryptids, Return of the Nephilim. And I put that out in October of last year, not last year, but the year before, 2024. So it's been out about a year and a half now. And I actually have real pictures of some of these strange creatures that we see out in the woods, like Bigfoot. There's Dogman in there. There's Mothman, and different structures, an upside-down tree, a ghost cat. You can see right through it. Even in the picture, you can see right through the cat. Just like I said, that's why we call it the ghost cat. Berries, everything. It's just loaded with tremendous information that wasn't drawn. It was actually taken. And I guess I should say it's not AI either. So this is the real stuff in that book, in the book. You can go online, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Walmart websites, and you can come up with a place to buy it. I think the book is running 14, 15, maybe $16. No, it used to run 19, but it may have, how sometimes they'll give you discounts. So somewhere between $15 and $20. But even if it's $20, it is well worth, trust me, the investment to have all that information right at your disposal.
What was the title again? Somebody's asking to put it in the description. I want to put it right here in the chat.
Yeah, it is Supernatural Cryptids, Return of the Nephilim. And some people pronounce that Nephilim different ways. It doesn't matter how you pronounce it. It's the same exact thing meaning wise. The Nephilim is the Hebrew word for giants. And they were giants in every which way, size, strength. We're talking anywhere between 7 to 15 and more footers. And it's funny because that's why I tied into the Bible, because the giants were just as tall as some of these Sasquatch and Bigfoot. And well, the dog man doesn't seem to be all that really tall. He's between 7 to 9 feet or 10 feet. And but the Bigfoot runs a little bit larger, so he can be anywhere between 7 to 15 easy. And on the Solomon Islands, if you've ever heard of them before, down there close to Australia, up in the ocean, the Solomon Islands, they're recording them between 15 and 20 feet down there. So that's just an example. And if you recall also, the Kandahar giant, the Kandahar giant was estimated by the soldiers and documented as right around 13 feet. Red-haired, cannibalistic dude, big, probably about 350, 450, maybe even over 500 pounds. I don't know. They didn't register. They didn't tell us the exact weight, but he was a big dude. And I know some people say, "Oh, it's just a bunch of conspiracy theories, whatever." Well, you can believe that if you want, but I had a friend that was actually, well, he wasn't in the group of men, but he knew and talked to one man that was there. And that man said, I know they say it's a conspiracy theory, but he said, I saw the thing for myself, and it's not a conspiracy theory. It was a real creature, but where they took it off to, he said, I don't know.
And it's funny you say that, because I know the guy who, when that team went missing, I know the guy who was in on the planning of the search for that team.
Oh.
So, yeah, it happened, folks.
Yeah, this it's not conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy because just like the UFOs for a while, the government didn't want the public to know about it because why? According to them, they were afraid. They didn't want to evoke panic, in a state of hysteria, and they didn't want to scare everybody. So they're very slow to admit the truth. If you get my drift.
Yeah, just like they said in Men in Black, a person is smart, people stupid. So
there you go. That's awful funny. We're stupid, but and in a certain sense, people are gullible. And they'll. But then there's some people are gullible, and others won't believe anything. So you got to kind of compromise and get in the middle there somewhere. But let's get into this. I know we got just a little bit extra time today, but man, Brian, we got so much stuff to cover. Just like you said, it might take another time to get this stuff in, but it's astronomical. We're going to start off with just a little recap. I'm going to try to keep this about 15 minutes on the recap, and that's chugging it. If you get my drift, that's chugging her down pretty fast. So today, folks, what my book is, the book I just mentioned, Supernatural Cryptid, Return of the Nephilim, it's about, UFOs, orbs, and if I should say the word, nobody wants to say it, but I'm going to say it, skinwalkers, Bigfoot, dogmen, UAPs, aliens, Mothman, fairies, dwarfs, um, and it just goes on and on. Whatever is out there is in my opinion related to this biblical phenomenon that takes place in your holy Bibles in Genesis chapter 6. The first 4 verses primarily, uh, it talks about the sons of God coming down. Excuse me. It talks about giants being alive on the earth in those days, and also after that. And then it says, makes a statement, when the sons of God came down unto the daughters of man, and they saw that they were fair and beautiful, and they took them wives, of all which they chose. So right off the bat, if you haven't noticed by now, you got a supernatural connection. These angels, if this is indeed what happened, and this is my opinion, that this very well could have, and it's just not my opinion. It's the opinion of a lot of your uh, top guys in this particular field of the Bigfoot research and everything, like L.A. Marzulli, um, and also David Pilates is kind of one of them. He talks about the missing people and what may have been, what may have happened to them. And then also, I got this one guy's picture in front of my face. I can't think of his name. Anyhow, he's with Thomas Horn was one of them, and then Timothy Alberino.
Oh,
Timothy Alberino was another one, and these guys believe the same exact way that I do, but I didn't get them from my beliefs. I got what my beliefs through, just years of hitting the Bible and talking to people and, forming this theory. And I don't see how it can be anything else. But again, it's an opinion. It's not set in stone. I would be the last person to say what I say is 100% factual. I can't, I can't, and I won't say that. But I really strongly believe, in what I believe. I wouldn't wrote the book in the first place. But that doesn't make it 100% right. And in the book, I never make statements, folks. I just ask questions, and then I'll give you some information, to back up what I'm asking, and then I'll say, well, if that is actually true, what about this? Would that connect the dots? And I'm connecting the dots all the way through the book. And so basically, when you read it, you're forming your own opinion as you go. Am I helping to form your opinion? Yeah, maybe, but you don't have to believe it. But what you when you read the actual paragraphs in the book, the material in the book, you'll probably say, I can definitely see where he's coming from, with that. So I'm kind of helping to do that a little bit, and I hope that people will get it, not because of me any financial gain, because to be honest, folks, and people are probably be kind of like, oh wow, I haven't got over $150 for all the books that from the publishers. I haven't got over $150 yet. And I know there's over 300 books that's been sold. But these publishing companies, they're out for themselves.
yeah.
Me, at knowing this, I'm just out for people to get the information. And that's what these podcasts like Brian's here and a few others that I've been on, and that's what they do. That's what I love to get on the podcast. I'll get it out and just rat on about this stuff because I strongly believe in what I'm talking about, or I wouldn't be here. Up until now, does anybody have any questions or want to say something about the material that I've said so far?
We got lots of people saying hi. We got lots of new people. Let's go through and we got Mary's in here tonight. Mary and Grizzly are in Tennessee. Lexi Ann. Good to see everybody in here tonight.
How many do you have approximately? Do you have 30 people in there, Brian?
Yeah, we got 35. So
well,
people,
praise the Lord.
that's right. Bring your friends, bring your brothers, smack the like button like it did something dirty to you. You know, help push the stream out and get David's word out there. And I got to admit, I'm going to be, I just put Tim Alberino on my phone, so I remember to look him up later because I've never heard of him, but it sounds like a lot of other people have. So,
he's a younger, kind of a younger man, probably in his 40s or maybe 40. I'm guessing. I don't know how old Timmy is, but he's a very knowledgeable guy, straightforward. He's been with a lot of knowledgeable people. Tim knows what he's talking about. So does L.A. Marzulli. L.A. is about, me and him are about the same age. We're getting up there in our 60s, mid 60s. So yeah, he's getting up there. But he's a very knowledgeable man. And L.A. has been to some of these mounds, and I've been to some of them too. But he's been more than I have. And he's been down there in Peru and South America. He's seen ancient sites like the giants have made. We're talking, and this is a tongue twister for me. Saskatchewan. I can never get that out right. It's where
Saskatchewan.
they have those obelisk stone structures. And Brian, if you know, help me out with that.
Saskatchewan.
There you go. That's yeah. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. There you go, folks. That's how you pronounce that.
I only know that because
and so if you look at that, those stones are cut so precise and yet in different angles that you can't even shove a piece of paper between them. And so, how did the ancients do that? Did people really do that with those big 100-some-ton rocks, or was it some other type of technology, or should I say, beings that perhaps formed that with technology? Um, with technology far beyond ours today.
Yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt. This just hit me. I do want to take a moment to, there were two people. One I considered a friend, was lucky enough to talk to. Tom Kintrell passed away, and one of the Bigfoot outlaw family, Jennifer McDaniels, passed away as well. I just want to take a minute for everybody to, keep their families in your prayers, please. So, if you
Most
can,
definitely.
with that out of the way, let's go back and get back onto cheerier topics.
Yes. Moving along from those stones and everything, like I said, I was, when I talked about the recapping and I was talking about the supernatural aspect of everything, if people can recall about Bigfoot, if you've heard some stories about what these things can actually do, um, and I have literally not been a witness, but I was in earshot of a tree that just, for no reason at all, just snapped. And we're not talking a 10-inch tree. We're talking a 2 to 3 foot tree that just snapped. And we went back to the site, I think it was about a week later, in that same area, I think we found the tree. And we took photographs of it, and it's in the book. Big mature tree that was turned upside down, stuck back down into the ground with the roots of the tree sticking in the air. Now, you tell me, other than maybe Bigfoot or something, is that possible to be done?
Not without heavy equipment.
Okay. Yeah, there's again, where this was at, there was no
Yeah.
way heavy equipment could have even gotten to it because there were other trees just like it standing all around it. But yet this tree was upside down, and you could tell that some had grabbed a hold of it pretty tight because you could almost see like indentations of arms or hands or something like that on the middle of the tree where they took and jabbed it down into the ground. So very difficult to do when there's not been any logging activity around in that area.
Yeah.
And again, talking about logging activity, in my book, there's a story from Richard McCanley. He's my co-author, and he was just driving down to the store from his house, and there were some people sitting along the road. And he said, "What's up, guys?" And they said, "Oh, we got a truck stuck back in there, and we're just waiting on some some dozer to pour out." Oh, he said, "Okay." And they kind of looked at him. He said, "Well, he said, is that all there is to it? How come there's all these traffic back in here? And where's the dozer got to pull it away?" "Well, you don't need to know that. We just got some cones out here, and we want people to drive by here slow." And he said the way they talk, he said they sound nervous. He said, some told me to go back and check it out. So he said, "Hey, you guys care? Mind if I go back and look at it?" We really don't want anybody back there, man." He said, "Oh, come on." He said, "I don't have anything else to do." And one guy said, "Hey, if you're so nosy and you want to go back and look, you could go back and look. I want to hear what you say about it," like that. And so he parked his truck. He went back there and looked, and he kind of almost at first couldn't believe his eyes because the logs that were actually on the truck had been taken off the truck. We're talking 1,500 to 3,000 pound logs, and were stood up all around the truck, and all around that there were great big footprints that looked like about 18, 20 inches long and 7 or 8 inches wide, and they were about 2 inches into the ground.
Wow.
So ask yourself what went on there, and if there were Bigfoot that took those logs off, what was the message they were trying to convey?
Yeah, that's always the mystery, isn't it? What do those cross are they saying keep out? Is it a territory boundary? What's
I would just my opinion, and everybody on here can have an opinion, but I believe that they were saying this is our home, and we don't want you boys in here monkeying around. And this is a message directly to you. And count yourselves lucky that you weren't back here whenever we came for the logs. That's what I kind of think.
yeah.
It's just a long shot for something, but it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean everything we think we know, until Bigfoot sits down and has a Bud Light with us and tells us, everything's kind of a theories and opinions at this point.
Exactly, and that may not happen anytime too soon with the Bud Light.
Yeah.
But anyhow, getting back to this supernatural aspect of the creature, another aspect that makes me think supernatural. I hate using that word because people shun that in the Bigfoot world. They're like, no, 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 no. We'll go paranormal a little bit, but don't say that word supernatural because if they acknowledge the supernatural, they have to acknowledge the existence of God, the God of the Bible. And a lot of people aren't very comfortable with that subject. So I'm not here to push religion or nothing, but in my book, I do talk about the God of that Bible because I believe that in a roundabout way, all things were made basically by Him. Now, you say, well, was Bigfoot actually created by God? I don't think so. I think that he is a result of hybridize. If I'm saying this for hybridization, I believe that he is a hybrid of creatures, and maybe even part of the sons of the original sons of God, whom the book of Enoch calls the Watchers. You ever notice, Brian, and your viewers, how that lots of time when people talk about Bigfoot, he's always watching from behind a tree. He's always watching people.
Yeah.
Could that? Could that? If this thing is associated with those angels, bad angels, if they are, it's really associated. If he is a product of that. Could that be some type of DNA sequencing inside of him that is the ring back to the original assignment that God gave those angels to watch over mankind at the dawn of time?
Could be.
And again, we're just posed. We're just like I do in my book. I just put out questions. Is it possible?
Oh,
And if it is Bigfoot a fallen angel? I don't know. I just don't know. It's just one theory in a sea of 20 to 30 different possibilities. Okay, that's all we're saying here. Don't go saying, "Man, he said Bigfoot was," and start laughing because I didn't say that. I said, is it a possibility that he could be real closely related to those particular angels? I think it's a possibility, and that's as far as I'll go with that particular theory. But there's a whole bunch of other things that we got to cover. And like I said, 2 or 3 shows, you might scratch the surface if you get my drift. It's like trying to read the Bible. You can't sum it up in 1 or 2 or 3 days. You can, or even 1 or 2 or 3 shows. It's impossible. You can talk about it. You can put some good. You can have some good stuff, but you can't sum it up perfectly. It'll never happen.
yeah.
Um, and again, now here's something that's really powerful. And how many of your viewers have ever heard of Gary Spearman before? He's from the biblical studies. The or what you call it now, prophecy in the news, where J.R. Church and him used to have a thing back in the early 2000s. Well, if they're not familiar with him, Gary is well versed in the scriptures and in news. They look at prophecy things and stuff like that. Gary is still living, and he's starting to show his age a little bit, but he's very, very wise. And this was a statement that Gary made concerning the days of Noah, because Jesus made a statement. He said, "As it was in the days of Noah, so shall also be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man, when he comes for his second return." So Jesus was basically saying that the same things that happened back there in the flood, before the flood, will be the same things will happen before he returns. So here's one theory that Gary, he put out a question, and he put his theory out in the form of a question for people to answer, of course. And this is what he said. He said, is there, or probably could there be, a connection between the corruption of the human race in the days of Noah and modern stories of UFO abductions? Is someone breeding another human hybrid race of aliens? So you can probably connect the dots to what he's saying. These UFOs or aliens that are in these ships, or however you want to believe about the phenomenon, there's a ton of stories. And I mean, when I say a ton, I mean I have in my possession 40 of them. That when these people are abducted, we'll talk about that Betty Betty and Barney, the story back in the early 60s.
Yep.
They were, and they never came across us until they had to take them under hypnosis. And when they did that, it kind of freed up the channels, I guess, of their memory or whatever. And they both said that they were touched in ways and probed in ways with metallic objects that were centered around their reproductive organs. They extracted some things out of Betty, something about the ovaries or part of the ovaries or something like that. And they also extracted semen from Barney. And he was afraid to come forward with that information for a while. And finally, he was kind of pressured, and he said, yeah, they kind of did that to me. Toward his later years before he died, they actually took semen from me. So it verified that, at least in their story, I'm not saying this has happened on every abduction, but according to the authors of this book I got, Alien Encounters by Chuck Missler. How many people have heard of Chuck Missler before? Well, in that book, he has a ton of stories where these people, and they have done surveys about them and conducted their stories and of that have actually been abducted, and a lot of them talk about even becoming pregnant. Now, not the normal way that you would think of pregnant was between a man and a woman, but because of experiments done to them, they became pregnant, and then after the child began to grow in the woman's womb, they were they were abducted again. Maybe let's say like 4, 6, 8 weeks ahead of, or after that, and they were brought in and they harvested the fetus, took it out of them, so they weren't pregnant no more. And you say, well, if that's the case, how often has this been done? According to these researchers that are up on this UFO phenomenon, this is in 1997, and they said they had a history of 100,000 cases. That was in 1997, my friend. What do you think that figure would be today? We're talking we're talking probably past the million mark, and maybe even far more than that. So, is this world populated with reptilians or aliens or something like that? Maybe. I would say it's probably not populated. If that's the case, it's infested. So, in my opinion, I'm connecting the dots with what happened back then in the days of Noah. They were choosing wives and doing things. They actually had almost like I would imagine close to the type of sex that man and woman have today. But then again, maybe it was different too for them too. I don't know, because I wonder, because their fetuses, babies, however you want to put that in there, they became giants that were enormous. And when I hear that, I think, how could a woman, have a huge baby? That would have to be a pretty big baby, wouldn't it? So there's some questions on that end. And then again, they could have had a normal child that just grew exponentially into a very big being. See what I'm saying? So there's several ways that the whole thing could have been accomplished, and exactly how is anybody's guess, But it's something kind of interesting to think about of the of the whole phenomenon. So if I could stop, kind of pause right here, I'll put that question out to your viewers, and then a few minutes later, you can tell me how some of them think that could have happened. How the angels that you would think would just be spirit, not flesh and bones, how they could actually engage with human women and have sexual intercourse. And let's see what kind of responses that we get from that question. Let me pause and just take my breath here a little bit and see if there's any answers come up. Or Brian, if you got something to say, you can put something in there.
No, I'm just sitting here trying to soak this in. You're saying some names I've never heard and definitely want to a good little research
You know
for
what
you.
I say? This guy's nuts. I gotta get him off of here.
No, if you were nuts, you wouldn't have been back this many times. You'd have been a one and done.
One and
Uh,
done.
yeah, you'd have been like a bad first date. You know, drop you off at the door, and that's enough.
Oh, that's comical. That just remind me. I had one and done first date, and I'm telling you what, I'd never go back to that. I can still recall that to this very day. It's comical, but I'll leave that story for another time.
Well, I can. Somebody just reminded me of one that brought back to me. We were talking about dating on, um, these dating sites after I had my divorce, and I went through one, and literally, even at the age I was at the time, I was in my 40s. Nothing like what she described. So we had dinner at Applebee's, and I said, "Excuse me, I have to go to the bathroom," and left. Never went back to the table.
You're still using that restroom, ain't you?
Yep, I'm still going potty in Applebee's somewhere.
Oh, Lord have mercy. We went to eat out for Valentine's Day. Went to the seafood restaurants. Don't go to seafood restaurants for Valentine's Day because you ain't going to get in any. Unless you go and you're the first ones there. That's about the only way. I pulled in and went into Red Lobster. I said, how much longer we got to wait? They said, well, you're 3.5 hours.
Ooh.
I said, catch you later. I turned right around. I can't wait that long for my food.
Yeah, Mary did put up a something important. I'll say that they had done an expedition back in September, and they're going to be scheduling a podcast soon in the next few weeks to go over our trip and footage from September. So everyone keep watching for when it gets posted. So, and from what I
Awesome.
understand, they had some pretty darn. If that's the one I'm thinking of, where they did an interview and actually catch some activity on camera, that's going to be good.
Oh, yes, yes. Talking about that, I have my co-author's friend. His name is Kane. He has his own podcast, The House of Enoch. Kane Michael, and Kane lives right beside the National Forest, Wayne National Forest. Plus, he has, I think, 300. I don't know the exact acres, but I know it's at least 350 acres. And then that butts up against the National Forest. So this man has umpteen acres to roam in, and the things that are out there close to his house, even
Yeah.
you wouldn't want around your place. And he's got documentation and pictures and thermal imaging. He's got everything documented, and the stories this man can tell you. Whew, I tell you, he's almost as good up there right with Richard McCanney, my co-author. Richard might have a little bit more because he's been doing this a lot longer. But Kane, he had the goods out there at his place, and he has a big farm pond out there, and he's even heard him splashing around at nighttime swimming in his pond.
Yeah. Well, we got one answer for your question. Angels can take human form, or they are more than just spiritual people. They do grow food to eat. It's in the Bible.
Yeah, and the Bible does talk about angels' food. Man ate angels' food. That is correct. That is correct.
So,
Yeah, I that's what I like to do, man. I like to ask questions. I learn from other people. I am not one, Brian, to say, hey, I know it all. What I say is 100% gospel truth. I would never do that. I love listening to what other people have to say too. But I do believe the connection that I'm making with the Bigfoot and the giants. And I've heard and I've read a ton of material in other people's books that practically imitate the same exact belief, perhaps said in different tones and different ways, but it's just imitating that these things may be a product, or maybe even children, possibly children of the giants that were spawned by angels, if you get my drift. So I believe that there is a connection there, and I think that's I'd love to know the exact original story, but like you said, all we can do now is attempt to connect the dots, and if they make sense, hey, run with it. If it sounds really wild and out there, just stop and think about it for a while, because sometimes I have found out in this particular field, the only way to come up with some of the truth is you have to stop and think outside of the box a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not all neatly packaged in a box and wrapped around with some paper and a bow on it. Sometimes you really got to stretch your own imagination and think, maybe it didn't happen that way. Maybe this nutcase named David Walker, maybe he has a few theories that are pretty close to the real thing. So we can entertain that too. And again, I would love for your viewer to go in there and say, hey, do you think it's possible that Bigfoot and the Nephilim giants are connected in some way? And I'd love to hear what they had to say about it too.
Yeah. I've
So
seen a few
am I
people chime
okay
in.
so far, Brian?
We're rolling. That's what matters.
We're rolling.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
And you're right.
Okay, now.
People do get locked into, especially with topics like this. And I'll be the first to admit, until I started the whole peanut butter thing, I was locked into an idea of what Bigfoot was and how it reacted. And then I had my experiences, and then I started going on the podcast and listening to people's stories, and realized that the lines in the sand I had drawn, I needed to erase, because
Yeah.
just because it didn't happen to me doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It just hasn't happened to me yet. Like Bigfoot cloaking and Bigfoot, you get into like Ron Moorhead with quantum mechanics and things like that to explain it. Nephilim, is just as valid of a theory as being giant monkeys from the past. So
Yeah.
people need, I shouldn't say people should be more open-minded and not be so divisive. There should be more of a Bigfoot community instead of little Bigfoot camps.
There you go. And that's where it's like a piece of a puzzle, Brian. You got 1,000 pieces. When you put them pieces together, it forms a picture. And I think that's kind of what you and I are talking about. Not just one person has 100% the whole entire picture. I believe it's pieces from the community, as you call it, themselves. And when you put it all together, you got something that looks like a Bigfoot in that picture. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, some people got the edge pieces, some people got corner pieces, and some got the center. You need them all.
Perfectly said. I love what you said there. Now, this guy by the name of John Keel, he wrote Operation Trojan Horse. This is about the UFO phenomenon. He said he's talking about he thinks a lot of the UFO phenomenon is just about like the supernatural, demonology, and things of that nature. But let's just listen to what he says, because he's not a Christian. He's just approaching this from a scientific view that allows the biblical transcript of the supernatural to enter into his play. What he says here is really good. It starts off with like demonology, but it ends up with some really interesting things. Listen, let's all hear him out, okay? It takes me about 2 minutes to read it. He said, demonology is not just another crackpotology. It's the ancient and scholarly study of the monsters and demons who have seemingly coexisted with man throughout history. Thousands of books have been written on the subject, many been authored by educated clergymen, scientists, and scholars. Uncounted numbers of well-documented demonic events are readily available to every researcher. The manifestations and occurrences described in this imposing literature are similar, if not entirely identical, to the UFO phenomenon itself. Victims of demania, possession, suffer the very same medical and emotional symptoms as these UFO contactees. The devil and his demons can, according to the literature, manifest themselves in almost any form and can physically imitate anything from angels to horrifying monsters with glowing eyes. Strange objects and entities materialize and dematerialize in these stories, just as the UFOs and their splendid occupants appear and disappear, walk through walls, and perform other supernatural feats. Now, is that food for thought?
Glowing eyes and yeah.
Horrifying monsters and materialize and dematerialize. How many have you ever heard? Or I'll just ask the audience. How many of your audience has ever heard of Bigfoot being there 1 minute, next minute, never heard him leave? He's just not there no more. Or Dog Man. I've heard stories of Dog Man doing this, being the same way, describing they don't know where he came from, but he was all of a sudden he's right there in front of us, and then you kind of turn around and you act like you're doing something, or you happen to look over here to the left or the right, and you look back to where he is, and he's gone. Yeah. Never heard him leave. Never heard no twigs break. He's gone. So these things, and I've had it happen to me. That's why I know it's true. And again, it gets back to my first story, the track stopping in the middle of nowhere, and where there's plenty of other room to run, plenty more room for tracks, no more tracks. And you have to think, where did it go? Did it stop and back up? Highly unlikely. And did it go to the left or the right? Well, there's no sign. It didn't go straight ahead, apparently, because again, there's no tracks to demonstrate that. It's almost like, they say, well, just up and vanished. And that sounds like science fiction right there. But what if it's not? What if it did just up and vanish? Or what if it went to another dimension or into a portal so that we couldn't see with our humanistic eyes? Even Einstein, we know the four dimensions, and then someone said there was a fifth dimension. Well, by the time Einstein got done with it, I believe there's like right around 11 dimensions that he found. 11 different dimensions. If that is so, what we're saying is into the air that we can't actually see, there is other entities that
Uh-oh. This is the first hiccup. I hope this isn't a huge thing. David, we're on a roll.
Am I back?
You're back. I'm panicking.
It's my hiccup because my phone does this occasionally, so it's my hiccup.
Okay.
Now, yeah, I think I was I just kind of went on there for a little bit. Can you tell me where I was at? Oh, yeah, I was talking about different dimensions, and that Einstein had uncovered 11 of them. Well, scientists said that there was at least 5, and Einstein demonstrated that there were 11 different dimensions. So what I'm trying to say is, he said, well, dimensions, I can't comprehend that. It's like different worlds, unseen worlds in the space that we just cannot see. And I know that a lot of people probably can't wrap their mind around that, but that's what they claim. And then also, my next thing I was going to talk about is how many people believe that these, quote, aliens are actually beings from other planets way out there in the solar system. Because with all the planets that are out there, surely there's life somewhere else. I mean, there's trillions and trillions and zillions of planets and suns and whatnot galaxies out there, right? Surely there's life out there somewhere. And so because that makes perfect sense, people think that these dudes are flying around here in flying saucers or whatever the case may be, are from the fourth quadrant on the second layer of the fifth galaxy out there in the Milky Way, far beyond us. Is that what people believe? And again, everybody has a right to their own belief, but try to rationalize that, if you will. And let's say 50 years ago, when all this 60 years ago, when all this UFO phenomenon was going on, let's say somebody in that fifth quadrant out there in the 14th galaxy beyond ours decided, hey, I'd like to go back to Earth, where we seeded those ancient beings, and see how they're doing. How long would it take that person to get to Earth? And of course, there's no answer for that. Everyone could have an answer, but probably none of us are even going to be anywhere close. But I will say this: one of the fast jets travels between 700 and 800 miles an hour. Well, let's just say 1,000 miles an hour to get from the next galaxy over to Earth. And let's say that in doing so, that this quote spaceship and people in it, they got to go through a wormhole to get into our galaxy. Let's just say all that happens and they get over here. How long would it take them to get even from Pluto all the way to the Earth? And when I found out the answer, it blew my mind. And we're talking about going 1,000 miles an hour.
Yeah,
and that's kind of hard on a person. It may not even be possible at that speed. But let's just say it is. Do you know how long it would take them to get from Pluto to the Earth?
At 1,000 miles an hour?
At 1,000 miles an hour.
That's probably 100 years at 1,000.
Would you try between 700 to 800 years?
Yeah. I believe it, because at light speed, it takes, 28 minutes to get from the sun to here? And that's 1,000,000 something.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. So we don't have, people think that these UFOs are out there in space flying around. If that were the case, why haven't we seen any of them? And why haven't they tried to make contact with those big discs they had out there searching for for alien life? Why haven't nobody ever tried to make contact with us then? I don't believe they're from out there. This is my opinion, and this is because, yes, I believe in one book and in one book only, and I believe that he has the answer to everything, and that's the Bible. Another good book, very closely along with that, is the apocryphal books, especially the Book of Enoch. Enoch is he's my man. I mean, he's just a man that I think we all would like to try to pat on the life after. The seventh from Adam. He was probably about the purest man. There ain't no doubt about it. He was the purest man, probably outside of our Lord Jesus, that ever walked the face of the earth. Because it said after 365 years, this man was walking with God the whole time. He just walked right on into heaven with God. Now, you got to be a pretty close friend of God to be able to do that. So let's just say that Enoch, he's talking to the future. He's in the generation that our Lord comes back the second time, and he starts talking about what life is going to be like on earth when he comes. And then he gets into talking about what life was like before the flood. And he connects those two to our Lord's coming, his first and second coming. So this guy was just like, he told us what it was going to be like, and so far he's been on the money. So if that's the case, is he on the money about the fallen angels, the watchers, what happened on the earth, and everything like that he talks about in his book? his first book. And so again, I say, if he was, and if he is, there's some these entities we see like Bigfoot, Dog Man, Mothman, and the UFOs flying around. Maybe I kind of think these UFOs are very akin to like fallen angels that have that identity, that have that ability to shapeshift into different forms of whatever they want to. Picture in your mind Superman and how he can go from a regular guy to a man of steel and grab a hold of a building and move it. I mean, that's just might be a wild analogy, but that's what these angels, they have the ability to shift into whatever particular entity they want to because they are supernatural. Yes, they may have their wings clipped and they may not have the same power that God's holy angels have, but they still have retain a certain amount of power related to their actual being when they were created with the other angels. They weren't completely stripped, but I believe they got the wings clipped to where they can't just act and do things exactly like the holy angels do. Another thing on that, Brian, I'd like to bring in is that I think that these angels, once they, attain the ability to have, let's say, a solid body form, maybe to be able to have these relations, I believe that once they crossed over into that realm, for them, there was no turning back. There was no saying, "Oh God, hey, I shouldn't have done that. Please forgive me." I think it was almost like Superman, in that story where he went into that chamber and he was super and he got changed over. He got
Mhm.
changed over to human, and his dad told him, once this happens, you can't change back. Once I change you, I can't change you back. I think it's kind of something like that to where they crossed the line. They crossed the line that they couldn't go back. And it's kind of a spiritual lesson to us too. You don't want to cross the line to where you can't go back to the Father. You can't go back to God. And there may be a line like that out there. And we don't ever want to cross that line. If you get my drift. But that's a whole nother story. I'm kind of getting a little bit off that. But I think that that's why there was no redemption for them. They did what was unforgivable. I can put it that unforgivable. If you get my drift. So what's your thoughts on some of that?
Oh, man, I hate putting my opinions out there. It's
Yeah, you
man,
just your thoughts, Ben. Just your thought, and everybody else that has heard me ask that question, let them put their comments on it. What do they think?
yeah. I'm seeing them in the chat. John points out that if these things can get into your dreams, they're definitely supernatural. Um, and Mary points out UFOs are freaky. There was one question we had early on that struck me, and I wanted to get your thoughts. When do you think the day of disclosure will come, or do you think it'll even come?
That is a really good question. Um, if it comes, Brian, I believe it would probably come after what the Bible refers to as the rapture,
Mhm.
when the saints get taken up, and all that's left on the earth basically are the bad people. I guess you could say it in a certain word. Not that they can't not that they can't attain redemption, because I believe that they still can, even after the church goes up. If once that part goes, once the church goes up, the restrainer, the Holy Spirit, um, may or he may not be here to stop the evil from just taking over. And there will be 7 years of basically pure hell, where the first half will be bad, but it won't be as bad as the second half. The second half is going to be where the devil himself is going to actually be ruling through the Antichrist, who I believe will be an actual Nephilim himself. And he'll be big, he'll be powerful, he'll have piercing eyes, he'll be able to command everybody's respect. He'll control the world through that, that mark of the beast, et cetera, and et cetera. But I think it's a disclosure to answer the question. Excuse me, to answer the question, I think that will come after that particular event takes place, if my theology is correct.
Mm-hmm. No, and I was going to ask you that because I remembered on one of the parts when you thought the Nephilim were going to be used as part of
Yes,
the army. So
very powerful. And you just brought up another thing that you remind me something I wanted to say is that in the book of Isaiah, I believe it's chapter 13. I'm not exactly certain what verse it is, Brian, but it's in chapter 13 of Isaiah. In the Septuagint, it actually says that giants will come in the very last days, and that God's going to call them for the purpose of fulfilling his wrath. Now, if giants are actually, and the Hebrew version said they are, if giants are the Nephilim, then the Nephilim will be coming back at that right before the Lord comes to help with this wrath part that's coming upon the face of the earth, helping the Antichrist, helping to rule the world during that last 3.5 years. Giants are supposed to be coming back. And as you well know, there have been reports of giants in the earth right today, right now, as we speak. Now, myself, I haven't actually seen a giant other than the fact that I saw Bigfoot a couple of times. But again, he may be a Nephilim. Maybe Bigfoot is a Nephilim. There's just so many things that you can see and tie with that. That we just don't know 100%. Like you said, we take little bits and pieces of our community, we stick everything together and say, "This is what it looks like to me," and none of us is 100% positive.
yeah, Lexi has a question. Says, I'm guessing that she means years. Aren't the first 3.5 supposed to be great to gather people to the Antichrist and to obtain the mark?
Uh,
Guessing
the
that.
first 3.5, obviously she's read the book of Revelation. It's supposed to be more about natural catastrophes during that time. That and also I believe that there's going to be a great revival during that time because the seventh chapter of Revelation talks about an innumerable multitude before the throne of God out of all nations and kings and what are peoples, and they said. And John said to the angels, that, "Where do these people come from? Where they come from?" And the angel said to John, "These have come out of, you know, great tribulation, and I made their robes white with the blood." So I'm a wondering, and maybe this lady can help me with my wondering: are these people that have missed the rapture, and they've just like they're just distraught that they missed the rapture, and they give their lives over to the Lord, and because they don't want to take the mark of the beast, they know it's going to be coming, that one world monetary system, and then when the Antichrist comes and he makes this pact, and they refuse the mark, they're going to be killed. Are these those people? Are they martyrs? And so it's a very interesting question. I believe that God will give people, even during the tribulation period, a measure of grace to be saved, to realize that they've made a grave mistake, but it's not an eternal mistake unless they let it be. Because we all know, once people do accept that mark, knowing that this is allegiance to the beast, there's no more forgiveness of sin for them.
Oh,
That's what the word said. There's no more forgiven. Because, and you know what I think it does, Brian. I think it changes their DNA system to where it changes their mind too. I think it's a change in the DNA, and they're no longer their exact self. They become the Antichrist slaves, if you please. Very interesting to think about, isn't it?
Yeah, Lexi replied. Sorry, Lexi, and I shorten everybody's name, so if I hope that's okay to call you Lexi. Yes, that's exactly how I believe. Yes, yes, yes. So
There you go. Whew. I got some cold water on my back when she said that. Because that's kind of it's kind of, when you're talking, all of a sudden some words come out of your mouth and you're not even sure what you're saying. Well, that's what happened to me, because I was trying to think of an answer that was scripturally correct. It has to be scripturally correct, because if it's not, then nothing I believe matters. You know what I'm saying? It has to be according to scripture, line for line, precept upon precept. Stuff like that. I'm not no Bible. Trust me, I'm not no Bible expert, but I do believe in the and the tremendous grace and mercy of our God. I believe it stretches far beyond what any of us can fathom. I mean, he didn't die on that cross for just a few. He died on it for everybody. But they all got to acknowledge him first before he can help them out. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, and Ohio Bigfoot kind of brings out. Kurt mentioned being marked with a social security number, but then Ohio Bigfoot points out that your parents did it. You didn't agree to the number, and the mark is something you will agree to when the Antichrist comes. So,
Yeah. I, I I I don't know if it has anything to do with the social security number or not. It may. It may, but all I know is it's supposed to be a mark in your right hand or your forehead. And this is exactly what I've been hearing through the grapevine on our social media sites like Facebook, Instagram, what have you, news breaks and stuff like that. Is they say the technology is coming out to instill some type of a chip in either the right hand or the first person's forehead. Now, isn't that remarkable, Brian, that they use that word right hand or forehead, the same terminology that the Bible that John talked about over 2,000 years ago? Totally remarkable, isn't it?
yeah, there's a whole lot of things coming in. I know this sounds kind of. I know we're supposed to be Bigfoot, but with all the good people that have been passing lately, it makes me wonder if that isn't on the horizon. Just seems like a lot of good people are going, and a lot of I hate
I
to use
really do. I really do believe that.
a lot of
My
bad
mind goes
people are
back to
just seem to be
my
hanging
mind
around.
goes back to Charlie Kirk. Um,
Yeah,
Man, I tell you what. And now all the evil is coming out. God, he said, Jesus said that everything that could be shaken, prophets have said this. Everything that can be shaken is going to be shaken right before the Lord comes back. And look at what's shaken. Look at how our government is being exposed for all the corruption that they've been into. Then you got these Epstein files, and then the list just goes, and the list of heinous activities and deeds. It just goes deeper and deeper and deeper, and not even presidents are safe from it. And so everything that can be shaken is being shaken. He's exposing everything that can be exposed, and it's not going to be too far off. That's my own opinion. But that's not really relating to. I don't want to get into the area I'm preaching here. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Because we're
no,
supposed to
I
be
was the
talking
same way. I
about a
was right.
different subject. But you got to admit, it's very interesting.
Yeah, I know. We kind of need a broad sweep here on how this connects, but you know what? That's okay because uh, we're getting information out in the chats enjoying the show, and that's what matters. And it's not the first show I've said I'm going to talk about this, and the chat takes it another direction, and I'll just run with it. So
Exactly, and that's the way. When I did preach a few times, whenever I say we're going to preach, I never will forget the one sermon that it was unbelievable. It's one of my first or second ones I ever ministered about. We was doing tent meetings, and I'll say this real briefly, and I'll get back into the Bigfoot. I promise you, but it's a story that will just blow you away. And so I was thinking about. I had the opportunity to preach on the tent revival. Well, this has been probably about 15, 20 years ago, and so what am I going to preach about? And I just got this. I'm going to preach about. It just said preach about Noah's flood. Oh, well, that's a deep subject, you know. I said, okay, I'll give my best shot. And I got in there and read it, the story, and okay, I knew just how I was going to do it, you know. And so I get there at the tent service, you know, and it was kind of cloudy out, you know. Maybe it might rain, you know. Kind of go along with the sermon, you know, nose flood, a little bit of rain or whatever. Well, when it came time for me to preach, all of a sudden, you would just, I just had announced what I was preaching about. And all of a sudden, bolts of lightning and thunder just began to raise. And within 5 minutes, we had a cloud burst. And I mean, it lasted the whole entire time. And here I am preaching, trying to preach to this. And men are running around. They're tightening down the flaps of the tent. They're trying to secure it and everything. And long story short, when I gave that altar call, everybody but 2 people was up at the altar. But you talk about a perfect title for a sermon on that particular night, and I mean, to say we had a hallelujah breakdown was probably an understatement. But it was all God. It wasn't me at all. It was all God. You know, you can't take credit for something like that.
yeah, that's kind of a sign from above. It was like, well, my mom had her widowmaker and lived through it, and all of a sudden she was finding religion again. And I'm like, yeah, nothing like almost dying to bring you a little closer to God, isn't it, Mom?
Mm, for sure, man. I tell you. But like, okay, getting back to our UFOs and stuff, I'll tell you another story. And this was in the book from Chuck Mishler. We were talking about how the aliens and kind of here on a mission of doing a lot of, you know, sexual stuff, and maybe getting having people produce babies, almost like a baby factory. Well, the Bible says in the book of Daniel, it says, they shall mix their seed with the seed of men, but they will not cleave one to another. And then he gives an example of how something about clay and another type of soil won't cleave. But I use the example, what makes sense to me, of like oil and water don't mix. So the seed of aliens and human beings ain't going to mix very good either. It's going to produce something, but the ultimate goal of the devil is to produce something that is contrary to what God's original creation actually was. He does not want anything close to resemble the image of God. And so that's why I think back then, and even now, is that we got to produce a race that is different from what the Almighty actually made in the beginning in the garden between Adam and Eve. So to me, that makes perfect sense. He's trying to create a different race, a race of aliens, because why? He can control them, and they can control mankind. And so that's what he wants, is to divert what God actually created, so that God they can choose to love God. God isn't going to force anybody to serve him, but they have that choice. But that's what, if they create something in his image, in the devil's image, or in his giants, or Nephilim, aliens, whatever, reptilian race, whatever, it's different from the original creation, and so he's okay with that. And so they're trying to produce this race, and who knows? He may be trying to do this so that he can use these particular subjects against God or help to fight against Christ when he comes back in his second coming. He may be trying to create a race that will literally fight against the very creator, Jesus Christ. That's kind of what I think, but everybody has their own opinion.
Well, and that begs me to ask you a question. Um, because if you think about it, man's already trying to monkey around and do the same thing with genetics. You've got your ligers and your tie-ins, but they all wind up unable to reproduce. So do you think what happens is going to be a one and done army just for that one purpose and then it's gone?
That's a multiple question there, based in it with one question, because you can go different ways with that.
Yeah.
I would think that the ultimate goal would be for that. But there could be several other different things that they can do along the way to either further their purpose, and to convince people to lose their salvation, or to convince people that they are our creators and that God isn't. There's several other things that they may be trying to accomplish along with that particular goal of using that army to fight against Christ. So,
Yeah.
you know. It makes sense to me, and I think that's what the purpose of this whole entire podcast is for us to put viable ideas out there and let the audience chew on them and come up with their own ideas, or whatever that makes sense to them too. We don't put anything on anyone. It's just, hey, what do you guys think? And I've been talking to people before, and someone says to them, I said, I never thought of it that way. That sounds really awesome. And that's what, kind of like a big Bible study, put it that way. But this is on a little bit of a different subject. But I think, like I said, my book, it brings everything back to the Bible. And I don't see where else it can really go to if you really want to be truthful as far as where these entities come from. That's what I believe. And when I'm talking all the books that I have read on the subject to come up with the book that I did, I probably got over 25 different books that I read uh, to form my book. I already had the idea in my head. I already knew which way I was going, but I'm like, which way do all these other people, go with? And you know what? I'd say 19 of the 25 books kind of went the way I'm kind of going even with this podcast. And so it was really remarkable. Either I picked them because they had good titles, or God picked them for me to help me, with the knowledge I'm putting out.
Yeah, and that's the
You know,
beauty
you know
of,
what I'm saying?
yeah, and that's kind of the beauty why I like doing this show for Grizzly and for Mary, because we welcome all opinions and don't bash anybody for it, just because maybe it didn't align with something I think. And
Exactly.
you can't do that in this topics in most areas of life. I mean, y-
And God doesn't, I don't think God expects us to figure everything out, Brian. He doesn't. I think the only thing he wants us to do is believe him and do the best we can. That's all but we have to do the best we can. We can't just say, well, and make excuses for ourselves. If we do the best we can, and he don't expect us to figure everything out.
no, that's what we're here is to learn we're here for a purpose, and we probably won't find out exactly what that purpose was until we're done.
Well, yeah, and he says he gives to each and every person the different gifts. And I do believe that doing the best we can is using our gifts to help others, and even if it's ministry gifts, singing or preaching or just talking to somebody. It's just like it's one usher in this one crusade. he happened to see a couple of boys. Listen to this story. He seen a couple of boys, right? And there was all the seats were taken except maybe a couple, and the usher had two seats beside of him, folded up. They were wooden chairs. So he seen the two boys, and they said, "Well, we don't have enough room for the boys." Went to leave. He hollered at them. He said, "Hey, boys, I got a couple seats right here for you." And so they walked back. He goes, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, here." And they sat down on the seats. Now listen to this. Do you know who their two boys were?
No.
Billy Graham and the guy that helped Billy Graham out in his crusades. They happened to be those two young boys back in, I don't know, 1950, 52 or something like that. And all the souls that Billy Graham won to the Lord and the other guy helping him out, that one usher that said, "Hey, I got a couple seats for you." He's going to be responsible for them too.
There's
You see what I'm saying?
yeah.
He'll be credited all those souls too, just because he said, "Hey, boys, I got a couple seats here."
Isn't it funny how one event in history can change and the amount of ripple effect in the pond it
Whew.
has?
I don't know about you, but I got cold water all over me on that one. That was a good one. I know we're talking about Bigfoot and stuff, but that was a good story. The Lord dropped that in on you. I'll put it that way, and it's true. It's 100% true story.
Yeah.
So
No,
what time we got here? We got 9:52. What?
we got
How
about
much
3 minutes.
more time do I? Am I out of time now?
We got about 3 minutes, so we definitely got to have you back.
Well, yeah, that and why don't you kind of get your audience to read some of their quotes or whatever, so
Oh yeah,
what they think of this.
I've been throwing the quotes up on the screen, and Lexi has a request. So maybe the next time you come on, Lexi would like to basically find out the books you've been reading to try to come up with that brought you to these conclusions. So is it possible you could list them on your site, the books?
The
Uh,
25 books I was talking about, you mean?
yeah. So maybe next time when
Um,
you make a list, or if you can know some of them right off the top of your head.
yeah, I'll definitely come up with them, Brian, and see what I can do about getting enough so everybody can look at them.
Yeah, and Mary, the boss lady, co-owner of the channel, says, "Dave, we would love to have you on more shows. Please let us know. We would love for you to come back."
Well, that
Sounds
really blesses me. That really does. I'm not lying. That blesses me that people want to hear more because they're just so much more. I
yeah.
haven't even touched I haven't even touched a 16th of it yet.
Yep. Mary wants to know if there's any way you could send titles of the book over so she can put them in a post up for people.
Yeah, why don't I go ahead and take? I'll send the book cover and stuff to you, Brian, and then you
Yep.
can maybe post it on your site, and then they can get it. They can get it from there.
Sounds perfect.
All right, we'll do her. We'll do her.
Joey, thank you for all the great information today. It was great and fun show. Part two. Yes, there will definitely be another part as long as Dave's willing to come back.
Oh, most definitely. I'll come back to me often as you want me.
We'll keep on plugging. So, Leanne, thank you,
Awesome.
Mr.
I'm
Walker.
fired up. I'm fired up.
All right. Well, with that, maybe we'll wrap it up right there for tonight. And then we'll schedule another time to come back and pick this back up because, like you said, we've barely scratched the top and definitely give me a lot of food for thought. And so maybe I'll actually have some questions for you. So, Lexi, I definitely want to hear more from Mr. Walker.
Awesome.
We need your intro on here.
I'm excited to be back on, buddy. Thank you.
All right. Well, with that, everybody, we are going to call it a weekend, at least for me and for David. Hopefully, he's got good plans to have some fun this weekend and enjoy. I can't thank you enough for coming back. I know we had quite a delay in between, but I think it was definitely worth the wait.
I
So,
think so too. I've really been energized just this little past hour.
all right. Well, with that, as they would say on this channel, coast to coast and around the world, everybody have a great night, great weekend, and prayers to you all because it's been a crazy week. Um, Love you and thank you for joining us.